de la Universidad de Michigan, pero también en la Escuela de Psicología y en un programa combinado entre ambas instancias.
I'm supposed to do this. I feel like with this in my hand, I'm supposed to sing. If you don't want me to sing. These are two centers that I direct, and all of the work that I'm going to be talking about today is really representative of my colleagues, too many to be named, who are involved in both the Prevention Research Center and the Youth Violence Prevention Center. The YES program was developed out of both of the work that we do in those two centers.
Él dirige estos dos centros y lo que va a presentar hoy día, representa el trabajo de todos los colegas que están en estos dos centros.
Okay, so here's the first video.
Primer video.
I know a few things a little bit here and there, but usually confuses Blue's translating for me, so thank you very much for translating. The first video is about basically the whole program. If you're not going to stay here for very long, after the video you can go home.
El primer video es básicamente sobre todo el programa, así que los que no tengan mucho tiempo para quedarse pueden irse después del video.
It's the whole thing.
Es todo.
Okay, never mind. It's not working. But if we can go on to the, it's my slides. It's not the system. It's my slides. Yeah, it's my slide. I tried it earlier, it worked, but it's not working. It's okay. It's not going to be a problem. Maybe at the end, what I can do is, can we get onto the internet from here? Yeah, I can, at the end, if you want, I can play the videos. You just tell me, if it's really, I'll have a sense of how well what you thought about the talk. There, now you ask for the videos.
Sí, al final va a intentar bajarlo de internet para que podamos verlo.
But the gist of the YES program is engaging kids in social change. And this is a picture from that video of the kids, of one group of kids who were talking about stopping violence in their neighborhood. And they made this video, cleaned up their neighborhood, made this poster.
Se trata de comprometer niños y jóvenes en el cambio social. Y este video trata de parar la violencia en un barrio, vecindario.
And the whole project started with youth violence. And was a way to prevent youth violence. And what we decided to do was to, instead of focusing on the kids, the youth as a problem, we said, well, what if they were part of the solution?
Todo el proyecto se trataba de prevenir la violencia y en vez de focalizar en los jóvenes como un problema, se conceptualizó a los jóvenes como parte de la solución.
So we define youth violence basically as three characteristics: that it's intentional, it's done on purpose, it's done against another person, and it hurts them.
Se definió la violencia juvenil como algo que se hace intencionalmente, que es interpersonal y que se hace con la intención de dañar a otro.
These data I'm going to talk about very quickly right now are from the United States. They're from the Centers for Disease Control National Studies, and they're a little bit old. They're about 5 or 6 years old. Some of them are a little older than others. It's the most recent data we have.
Va a mostrar unos datos que son los datos más recientes que tienen, pero sin embargo señala que son un poquito antiguos. Algunos tienen hasta 6 años de antigüedad.
but it hasn't really changed that much in that period of
Pero
time.
no ha cambiado tanto en este periodo de tiempo.
20%? Go ahead and say it.
20%.
I thought you were going to say it in English.
No.
We're bullied. 1 in 5 are bullied in the United States. 1 in 5 school kids, school-age children are bullied.
1 de cada 5 escolares es víctima de bullying.
The victim of bullying? Marc, did you say a victim of bullying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Víctima de bullying.
25%, 1 in 4 have been in a fight.
1 de cada 4 ha estado en una pelea.
6% said they carried a gun to school.
6% dice que lleva su pistola al colegio.
And it's about 18% carried some kind of weapon, usually a gun, a knife, a razor,
Y
something.
un 18% lleva cualquier tipo de arma, que puede ser, bueno, una pistola u otra, arma blanca o qué sé yo.
In the United States, 16 people between the ages of 10 and 24 are killed every day.
16,
Homicide.
en Estados Unidos, 16 personas entre las edades de 10 y 22 años son asesinadas diariamente.
It's the number 1 cause of death for African American kids in the United States, 10 to 24 years old.
Es la causa número 1 de niños afroamericanos en Estados Unidos, de muerte de niños afroamericanos en Estados Unidos.
It's number 2 for all kids in that age.
Y número 2, causa muerte número 2 para todos los niños en Estados Unidos.
African American kids are 15 times more likely to die of homicide than their white counterparts.
Los niños afroamericanos tienen 15 veces más probabilidades de ser contra la muerte, ser asesinados que los niños no afroamericanos en Estados Unidos.
6 years ago, this is how many people between the ages of 10 and 24 were treated in an emergency department for an intentional injury. Over 500,000 people, well over 500,000 people.
Más de medio millón de personas fueron tratadas en un lugar de primeros auxilios por heridas perpetradas, digamos, en estas condiciones de violencia.
In what period of time?
10 to 24.
En la edad de 10 a 24 años,
During a year?
In 1 year.
en un año.
The CDC has estimated, based on those data, they've estimated that this is about how much that costs society between lost wages, the cost of medical care, the cost of post-mental health care, and all of the surrounding kind of costs involved, prison, that sort of thing. It's about $250 million.
Esto es más o menos lo que le cuesta a la sociedad, más o menos $250 millón le costaría este problema si consideramos todos los costos adicionales, digamos, y involucrados que implica este tema de la violencia juvenil.
Think youth violence is a problem in the United States? Other people think youth violence might be a problem in the United States. Might be an issue to look at. Health disparities, cost to society, number of people. No, you want to go there? No, it's okay. I'm just, the cost is very high.
Sí, es un costo muy elevado.
The good news is, it looks like there was an increasing period of time and we've now come down, but we've now leveled off at about these rates. So this is better news than it would have been 15 or 20 years ago.
La buena noticia es que ha decrecido un poco este problema en comparación con, por ejemplo, hace 15 años atrás.
How many people have been to the United States?
¿Cuántos de ustedes han estado en Estados Unidos?
Okay, well, here's a map of the United States.
Acá tienen un mapa de Estados Unidos.
And all of the work that I'll be talking about today, or most of the work, happens in the state of Michigan, which is in the red. It's the only state that's in 2 parts in the whole United States.
La mayor parte de lo que él va a hablar ocurre en el estado de Michigan, que es el único que tiene dos partes, como pueden ver allá en el mapa.
And we are surrounded by lakes, the Great Lakes, you've probably heard of those. It's the most fresh water all in one place on the planet.
Y están rodeados de lagos, más que cualquier otro lugar on the whole planet, you said? En el planeta, más que cualquier otro lugar del planeta.
So this is a close-up. People who live on the top are called Upers. Upers.
Upers.
Upers. For Upper Peninsula. Upers. U-P-P-E-R-S.
Ya. Los que viven arriba, digamos, en este mapa, se llaman Upers. Okay.
Right. And right where they're kind of come together, right in the middle there, is a bridge.
Y en el medio hay un puente.
And the people from the Upper Peninsula call those of us who live down below
Y la gente de arriba, la península, llama a los de abajo
trolls. Trolls.
trolls.
Trolls. Because we live below the bridge.
Ah, ok, porque viven debajo del puente.
It's so fun. Michigan is shaped like your hand.
Michigan tiene la forma de la mano.
And people actually call that piece over here the thumb.
Ok, entonces le llaman a esa parte el pulgar.
And when you ask somebody from Michigan where they live, they go like this.
O sea, usa la mano como referente de donde viven.
We have the dubious distinction of having two cities that are sometimes number one, sometimes number two, but certainly in the top 3 or 4 most violent cities in the entire United States per capita.
Okay. Tienen la distinción algo dudosa de ser la ciudad a veces número 1 según la estadística, a veces número 2, pero más violenta de todo Estados Unidos.
The red star is where we live and where we work, and it's called Southeastern Michigan. That actually is more or less where Flint, Michigan is based, and that's where some of this work is done.
La estrella roja muestra dónde ellos trabajan, dónde están situados, Southeastern Michigan.
So very quickly, some of the risk factors for youth violence.
Factores de riesgo para la violencia juvenil.
Poverty.
Sorry.
That's okay. I said it in Spanish. Next one. Violence in the family, so poverty, being poor, violence in the family, and being bullied are 3 major risk factors for violent behavior.
Violencia, el otro es violencia intrafamiliar, el otro gran factor de riesgo, y el tercero es ser víctima de bullying.
Okay, you haven't engaged yet? Are you at all interested? Still paying
¿Están
attention?
todavía
Still
interesados?
with me? Okay, so I've done some research in empowerment theory, and so when we talked about getting kids engaged in the process, I immediately thought of empowerment theory, since that's how we think about the world. So let me tell you a little bit about empowerment theory.
Sí, cuando hablábamos de cómo envolver a los niños en estos temas, inmediatamente pensé en la teoría del empoderamiento, porque es la manera que tenemos de conseguir juntos. Así que hablemos ahora de empoderamiento.
Some underlying assumptions.
Algunas asunciones.
I'm empowered, I made sense. Underlying assumption is focusing on assets, what's right versus what's wrong versus deficits or risks.
Focalizarse en los recursos versus los riesgos.
Empowerment theory would suggest that we would, next one, we would enhance strengths, build strengths, rather than fixing problems.
Sí, entonces estamos promoviendo mejorar o fortalecer recursos en vez de focalizar en los problemas.
The idea of promoting health rather than preventing disease.
Estamos en la idea de promover salud en vez de prevenir enfermedades.
Importantly, thinking about the ecological context instead of victim blaming.
Sí.
And you want to say that? The idea there is when we focus on changing people, we don't pay attention to the context in which they're living. And so we blame them for their problems that they may have or that they may be contributing to society without us thinking about other factors that may be involved. As I pointed out, being poor, people usually don't elect to be poor. They often are born into poverty. They're born into violent families, and they don't always choose to be bullied.
Yeah. Entonces, esta diferencia entre focalizarse en el contexto versus culpabilizar a la víctima, que tiene que ver con que habitualmente cuando tenemos problemas tendemos a culpabilizar a la persona, la responsabilizamos por lo que viven en vez de poner atención a los contextos en los cuales estas situaciones ocurren. Entonces, básicamente, las personas no eligen ser pobres, no eligen vivir en contextos de violencia o sufrir bullying en el colegio.
And then lastly, or second to last, is empowerment is about with relationships, not for relationships. The idea that other people may bring ideas and strengths and skills and knowledge to the table, that we're not just the experts, that we can be our facilitators. So we work with people to address social problems with an empowerment perspective versus us coming in with the solutions.
Sí, esto de trabajar con las personas en vez de trabajar para las personas, ¿no? Las personas ponen recursos encima de las mesas con las cuales nosotros trabajamos en conjunto y por lo tanto somos facilitadores del proceso y no los expertos.
So and then lastly, the idea that empowerment isn't just about individuals, but it's also about organizations, or it can be about communities, it can be about families. It's not just an individual level construct. And I've written about all of this stuff, and if you're interested in it, I can point you to some papers. And, I'm going to go through some of what we're doing, but a lot of what we've done has been published and should be relatively easy to find in Google. But if you have any questions or whatever, at the end we have a website that can also direct you to some of these citations.
Y él habla también de múltiples niveles, los cuales hablan de instituciones, organizaciones, personas, es decir, no solo focalizarse a nivel individual, que él dice que todos estos trabajos han sido publicados en distintas partes, entonces que no debería ser tan difícil encontrar el trabajo en internet si lo googleamos, y que luego vamos a ver una página donde también donde podemos referir información.
So in addition to the underlying assumptions, focusing on positive rather than negative, health rather than illness, ecology versus individual, there's also this idea that I've written about in empowerment theory about processes and outcomes. Yeah. A couple more times. One more. One more. Okay. I'm from New Jersey. To be talking this slow, like nobody could believe that I can talk this slow.
Nadie creería que puedo hablar esto así de lento.
In my bet is I probably could talk a little bit faster, but it's not. I'm speaking relatively slow for these guys. I know how hard that is because I try to speak in Spanish and it takes me a very long time to get the idea out, remember the verbs and all that stuff.
Bueno, que le cuesta hablar español y que se le tomaría también largo tiempo. Bueno, entonces está la experiencia de tu proceso y resultado también como una distinción importante en la teoría.
So let me tell you a little bit about processes. Crystal, one more time. So, one more time. Again. So the processes refer to how people become empowered. A process is the mechanism by which you get to an outcome. And an outcome is what it is, how you might measure it, what it looks like. So I'm going to talk a little bit about process, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what outcomes look like, and then I'll talk about how that we've translated all of these ideas into the Youth Empowerment Solutions Project.
Entonces ahora vamos a hablar un poco del proceso y luego de cómo se ve el resultado final, que es lo que se aspira, y cómo esto se ha utilizado en el programa, en el contexto del programa.
So one process working with children especially is creating opportunities for them to learn skills, work with each other, work with other adults, but it's creating social context for positive things to happen.
Ya. Entonces un proceso tiene que ver con crear oportunidades para los chicos, que tiene que ver básicamente con la forma en que puedan trabajar con adultos, trabajar entre ellos y también facilitar que cosas positivas, que experimenten cosas positivas.
It's about engaging them in social change, or engaging them in community improvement or self-improvement, or the idea is figuring out ways to engage them in the process.
Y también de involucrarnos en el proceso de cambio social.
The processes need to have a focus on skill building. One of the things that we do in the YES program, it's all active learning, so they develop skills by doing.
Y también el desarrollo de habilidades, que básicamente lo que ellos hacen en el programa es aprender a través de hacer.
And then lastly, the process has to help them gain confidence in themselves, especially children. But individuals who are disempowered in some other way, gaining confidence that they can actually have some agency in their life. Even if they can't necessarily change everything, if they can have some control and agency in their life is the point.
Yeah. Y también es importante tener confianza, desarrollar confianza en sí mismo, que es algo importante sobre todo con los niños, porque eso es un elemento que habitualmente está deficiente.
So now outcomes. So, did you skip one? Yeah.
Respecto a los resultados.
So, when I've written about empowerment, I've talked about three components, three parts of what empowerment might look like for an individual. And I've written about it for organizations and communities, but I'm going to focus today on the individual.
Entonces, cuando hablo de empoderamiento, hablo de que eso se desarrolla en distintos niveles. Bueno, también en el nivel individual, comunitario y organizacional, pero ahora voy a focalizarme en lo individual.
And the first component is intrapersonal. It's what goes on in the head. So to measure empowerment and recognize it when you see it, you have to measure what people think about themselves, their self-efficacy, their sense of self, self-esteem. Those kinds of variables.
Yes. Para poder evaluar a nivel individual, está el primer componente intrapersonal, y para eso hay que evaluar medir cómo las personas se ven a sí mismas, elementos de autoconfianza, etc.
So what I call the feeling component, how they feel about themselves.
El componente acerca de cómo ellos se sienten consigo mismos.
The next one is the interactional component, and this is the idea of interacting with their environment. And so it's their sense of understanding the context in which they live, understanding some of the causal agents or the factors that make things happen in their lives. And I'll give you a quick example. For you, those of you who are students, if you don't like a grade you get, there's a particular process for how you go about challenging that grade. If you can't convince your professor, if you think you've been wronged in some way, there's a mechanism for doing that on campus, at least at our campus. I'm sure it's here too. Knowing that is important. Some students might just give up, but other students might know how to do that. Knowing how to do that is an example of the interactional component.
Sí. Entonces el tema interaccional tiene que ver con entender el contexto en el cual se dan las cosas y la relación con los demás. Él pone como ejemplo el caso de un estudiante que no está contento con el resultado de un examen y el estudiante que para él es importante y que sabe cómo resolver el problema, qué mecanismo utilizar para solicitar la revisión, por ejemplo, tiene que ver con un ejemplo del componente interaccional.
It's what I call the thinking component.
Sí, lo llamo el componente del pensamiento, ¿no?
And connecting. Sometimes the idea is that you have to connect with other people to succeed in what you're doing. Sometimes you can't do it alone. And there's no weakness in that. There's strength in that.
Sí, también le llamo el componente de la conexión en el sentido de que para lograr algo a veces tenemos que conectarnos con otras personas, vincularnos a otras personas.
And then there's the behavioral component, which is taking action or doing.
Luego el componente de comportamiento que tiene que ver con tomar acción y hacer. El hacer.
So one more. And so where they all come together is what I call empowerment outcomes. So we have the process, opportunities, engagement, gaining confidence, gaining skills, processes to do that, and then how do you know it when you see it, when you measure things that get at how they think and feel about themselves, how they think about their world, and how they engage their world.
Entonces tenemos, estos son los resultados del empoderamiento. Tenemos entonces por un lado los procesos, los distintos componentes que hablamos antes, y cómo se ve, cómo sabemos si lo logramos, tendríamos que medir estos distintos componentes.
So a conceptual model of what I just said is simply this. Empowerment processes lead to empowerment outcomes. But I'm of the mind that empowerment outcomes, feeling good about yourself, thinking critically about the world and engaging in it, is only important to the extent that it helps you have healthy and positive outcomes or avoiding negative outcomes. And so this model basically shows that empowerment processes leads to a sense of empowerment, which then leads to, in this case, positive youth development.
Positive health?
Positive youth development.
Youth development, yeah. Well, that is, este es el proceso que se sigue, ¿no? Del proceso, luego el resultado y luego como el concepto de los resultados finales y el desarrollo positivo de los jóvenes.
And now on to the YES program and how we translate this into a program. So the next slide will show you that the YES program, this is the symbol on the left. In the very first implementation of YES, we asked the students to design a logo. This is their logo, and we've used it ever since. It's all the way on your left, Youth Empowerment Solutions.
Sí, este es un logo que ellos mismos han diseñado, ¿no? They designed themselves, this logo. The youngsters designed themselves with the signs, ¿no?
The kids designed that,
the
yeah, the kids in the first
the
year.
Kids, sí, ellos diseñaron ellos mismos este logo, y entonces que lo utilizan.
So this is our basic, our conceptual model. So now let me tell you where we kind of get some of these ideas. And if we can scroll through these somewhat quickly. I've done a study, a adolescent study for many years. We started in 1994, and we have followed those kids into young adulthood. These actually they're now about 30 years old, and now we're collecting data from their kids. We've translated the results from that study to guide the work. And again, I can go into all the details, but the three key things I'll tell you what I just said.
Yeah. This is a study that you based on, the result you based, the program was based on the result of the study.
Findings from this
Findings of the study, sí. Entonces el programa que se desarrolló fue el resultado, se basó en los resultados de este primer estudio que se realizó, que fue un seguimiento, ¿no? De los chicos en una cantidad de periodo de tiempo.
So what we consistently find is, number one, that adults matter in their lives, both their parents, but importantly, non-parental adults, or what we call mentors, people who the kids can go to for advice, guidance, and go to for help for all sorts of issues that they face in their lives. Kids who have a mentor do better in terms of drug use and staying in school than kids who don't have a mentor.
Sí. Una cosa que encontraron los chicos que tienen un mentor en el sentido de una persona de apoyo adulta, les va mejor en algunos indicadores concretos de education.
Sí.
Y en el colegio, que los chicos que no tienen este mentor o este apoyo.
We also find that kids who have a strong sense of identity, of self, and in particular of being African American, have also better outcomes than kids who have lower levels of those identities.
Sí, los chicos que tienen una fuerte sentido de identidad también les iba mejor que a los chicos que tenían bajo sentido de identidad.
And lastly, kids who are engaged in extracurricular activities do better than kids who are not engaged in extracurricular activities. Broadly, it could be church, it could be community, it could be school, but activities outside of the school.
Sí, y aquellos que hacen actividades fuera del colegio, en horario de extracurricular, también les va mejor en el sentido del consumo de drogas, por ejemplo, que chicos que no lo hacen en términos generales, no importa si tiene que ver con algo de la iglesia o ser comunitario, etc.
So this is simply we did a study that's under review right now to basically show that these components of empowerment, as I explained to you before, work empirically. In other words, we have indicators in the boxes of the three different components. The feeling component or interpersonal. We have measures of self-esteem, leadership efficacy, and civic efficacy. I'll just read through this and then you can just explain it. And then the behavioral component with the three indicators, which are again in the boxes. And then the interactional component, and again the three boxes. And when we had those measures, and we collected those measures from middle school students, we find that they, in a factor analysis, a statistical method called factor analysis, some of you may know what that is, maybe all of you do. And then we did a second order factor analysis to show that those three factors of the three components that I've talked about actually also combine to create one overall factor called psychological empowerment. So this slide is really the empirical basis for the outcome measurement that we've talked about in the theoretical model that I just presented.
Sí, bueno, básicamente que aquí está el modelo con los componentes y sus indicadores, y ellos hicieron, ¿no? Esto lo aplicaron, lo estudiaron, lo midieron y efectivamente los componentes funcionan, o sea, en el factor análisis estadístico efectivamente funcionan. Y hay algunos ejemplos de indicadores, por ejemplo, el interpersonal, autoestima, eficacia de liderazgo, etc. Y esta es la base empírica del trabajo del proyecto.
So we like to take our ideas and test them empirically, and then if they work out, we take the next step, which is exactly what we did here.
Perdón, can you repeat that?
Yes, sure. So most of what we do, we have ideas, but we want to operationalize them with data. And so we do studies to see if our ideas are actually supported by the data. And this is an example of that. And then we move on to then do the next step. And so the next slides, I actually will talk about the YES program and how we translated all those results into this action that we're taking with the kids.
Sí, entonces nosotros habitualmente funcionamos teniendo una idea, queremos ver si esta idea funciona en la evidencia, y luego que tenemos esa confirmación podemos dar el siguiente paso, que es un poco el ejemplo que se está siguiendo ahora y que tiene que ver con el desarrollo del programa.
Dun, 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 dun. Finally, all that to get to the Youth Empowerment Solutions project. So let me talk about the project goals.
Ahora hablar de las metas del proyecto.
First, it's youth creating change. It's to help youth create the change in their communities, to help reduce youth violence.
¿Cómo los jóvenes producen el cambio en sus comunidades? Vendría siendo el título.
It includes adult training. So we realize that we can't expect adults to automatically interact with kids and giving them power and giving them control.
Incluye el entrenamiento de los adultos, porque no se espera que los adultos automáticamente sepan cómo poder, comillas, entregarle poder, digamos, a los jóvenes.
And then it's community development. So their change is in some way improving community, whether it's the social or the physical environment.
Incluye también desarrollo comunitario, que puede ser tanto el ambiente, o sea, la mejora del ambiente social como físico.
So what are the kind of activities that we have them doing?
¿Qué tipo de actividades entonces estamos o están ellos realizando?
We have skills workshop where they present their ideas in a verbal fashion. By the way, this project was designed and developed initially with middle school students 10 to about 13, 14 years old.
Bueno, esto se llevó a cabo con escolares de entre 10 y 14 años y una de las cosas que hicieron fueron estos talleres de habilidades, skills o competencias.
They do community projects. It's all building up the community projects. And at the end of the curriculum, it's a sort of a linear fashion. We get them to developing community projects. This is some pictures from the kids actually doing a community garden in an empty overgrown lot that they took over and made into this garden. And you can see on the bottom right-hand side, there's a guy leaning over with the, in the one where the dirt is. There, that's me.
Bueno, otro componente de atracción que incluían son proyectos comunitarios, que era parte de su currículum. Dice que en alguna parte de esta foto está él. Yo no lo identifico mucho, pero sí.
Agachado.
Agachado, parece. Where? Okay. Ese es él, dice. With long hair?
So when I had a ponytail,
Todavía tenía el pelo largo.
you can tell them that's when we first met.
Sí, de hecho, yo lo conocí con el pelo largo.
Hippie. And then we included some activity around ethnic identity and pride. And one of the videos I was going to show you was the kids talking about African masks and making African masks. And if you're interested when we're done, again, I can play some of those for you, or even brief snippets of them. They're kind of cool. One of our master students created the videos. She did an internship with a filmmaker to do health education through media, and we hired her to make some of these videos. And like I said, they're kind of cool.
Bueno, otro componente de atracción que incluían tenía que ver con la identidad y orgullo étnico, y justamente el video que él intentó mostrarnos y no pudo tenía que ver con esto, porque había unas máscaras africanas que estaban siendo mostradas en este video y estaba contando, digamos, que habían contratado a alguien para que pudieran montar estos videos.
So the last piece is working with adults.
La última pieza es el trabajo con adultos.
So remember the idea of feeling good about yourself, ethnic identity, the idea of working with adults, mentors, and having adults that they could look up to and engaging their world and being engaged in some way are all the pieces that we found in the past in the studies that we then put into this curriculum to help build up to them actually doing a community project.
Sí, y de hecho estaba diciendo, recuerden que esto era parte del modelo que les mostró antes, que era este modelo empíricamente basado. Entonces de ese modelo salen estas distintas piezas, y esta última pieza, digamos, era el trabajo con los adultos como mentores, que también se había demostrado que era importante, por lo tanto pasa a ser entonces una de las piezas de la intervención.
And we have a curriculum. It's interesting, one of the lessons we learned, we had this idea of engaging kids as being part of the solution, and then we realized that you can't just ask kids to start doing these things without giving them some structure. So the curriculum has a specific structure leading them up to that activity. We talk about their roles as leaders and working with other people. There's 5 units. Youth as leaders.
Ellos tenían esta idea de involucrar a los jóvenes en que hicieran el trabajo, pero se dieron cuenta inmediatamente que para esto tenían que darle una cierta estructura, y de eso es este currículum. Este currículum tiene 5 unidades.
When you say curriculum, what are you meaning exactly?
Curriculum?
Yes.
It's the directions of the program. It's
Okay.
curricular instruction.
But,
Like curricular instruction.
but explain to me because it could have a slightly different meaning here. So you mean it's the structure of the program? Or
And the
what?
lessons.
The lesson.
It's the lessons in the program and telling the teacher what to do
Okay.
in the different sessions.
But at school?
This is
No.
this is after school, but also we're working on it in school. Yes.
Ya. Bien, o sea, es un currículum de estos trabajos extra programáticos, digamos, que eran parte de este programa.
And there's 5 components. Youth as
Y
leaders,
tiene 5 componentes:
community and culture.
comunidad y cultura.
And what they do in that one is they think about and learn about community assets and liabilities and do a photo voice project.
They learn about community what? They learn about community
Assets
assets.
and liabilities. Strengths,
Strengths,
and
ok.
problems.
El primero tenía que ver con fortalezas comunitarias y ahí hicieron un taller de fotografía.
And then, do you all know, have you ever all heard of photo voice? What that is?
Photo voice.
Okay. I'm hearing rumbling. The way they think about community strengths and community problems is we give them cameras or they use their phones and they take pictures and then they come back together and talk about what they took a picture of and what it makes them think of.
Ok, una actividad en que ellos tenían que tomar fotos de lo que consideraban fortalezas o debilidades y luego, digamos, llevar de vuelta al taller estas fotos y entonces explicar por qué, o sea, cuál era el sentido, digamos, y qué asociaban con ello.
One year, one group actually used those photo voice pictures. They selected 12 of them, made a calendar. We brought them to printers, and they interviewed printers and decided where they were going to have it printed, and then they basically raised money for social programs in the community.
Un año, de hecho, seleccionaron 12 de estos, fueron a imprimirlo, hicieron un calendario, con este calendario después se vendió y lograron recolectar dinero para proyectos comunitarios.
This one's working.
Can you hear it?
One's very sociable, one's not. I made a dog because dogs are crazy and crazy in their playful. That's why I had this tongue sticking out. This big childish like me. And they're loyal.
Does it work? Do you want me to hold it? Is that okay? Can you hear it more or less?
See ourselves like a project, what we was on the inside, how we would define ourselves, how we would show ourselves. Some people don't know who they are. I just want to express myself, but they can be able to see what I see myself. Or for us to be able to like connect ourselves and express who we are. Some people say that you're very stressed, you don't feel like you belong here, you don't work as well. You know, that's something that we work together, have good teamwork skills. With Flint, it's important to have those because Flint could and will bring you down because what's going on with violence and drugs and everything. When I get older, I don't get picked up in the wrong group and then you could end up in jail quickly. It helps me get in the right group so I can keep on the right path.
That's it. If we just, I don't know how much of that you were able to hear.
¿Se escuchaba más o menos la pregunta? Not very.
I'm so sorry. Sometimes when I put the microphone up, it's enough. But I want to stop it here. He's holding up a picture of a liger. Does anybody ever hear of a liger? An animal of a liger?
Doesn't exist. It's not. It's nothing.
Ah, ok.
A liger is, he talks about a liger being a cross between a lion and a tiger.
Ok. Una mezcla, un cruce de un león y un tigre. Entonces está mostrando un cuadro de un lion.
And how it represents him because they're brave and they're beautiful, and so he put those two together. The other,
Y lo representa a él porque es un animal bravo y es hermoso.
and the other kid had a picture of a dog. His face was a dog, and he picked the dog because they were playful.
Y otro eligió, o sea, un dibujo de un perro porque el perro era juguetón.
So part of the early part of the curriculum in helping them learn about their identities or their history as African, their African history, they make these, we talk about masks and the role that masks play in African culture. Then they actually engage in making their own masks and talking and reflecting about themselves to each other.
Bueno, se están trabajando el tema de las máscaras, cómo esto tiene que ver con su historia y sus antepasados afroamericanos y el simbolismo de las máscaras, y luego lo relacionan con ellos mismos y con su propia identidad en ese taller.
Okay, so far, so good? I'll go through the evaluation results somewhat quickly.
Va a pasar ahora a los resultados, a la evaluación.
We've done both process or implementation evaluation as well as outcome evaluation.
Hizo evaluación tanto de proceso como de resultado.
So one of the things we learned after we talked to the kids is we learned that they want younger adults working with them.
Una de las cosas que aprendieron es que ellos quieren trabajar con adultos jóvenes, quieren que adultos jóvenes trabajen con ellos.
We had retired teachers because we thought they'd be really good, but teachers are very good at controlling kids, not letting things go.
Tenían también ellos a disposición profesores retirados, pero se dieron cuenta que los profesores eran demasiado buenos en términos de control.
So we hired undergraduates, like some of you may be.
Por lo tanto, lo que hicieron fue contratar estudiantes de pregrado.
We also improved our adult training so that they would be, to help them give up control and let the kids have more control about what projects they would do and how they would implement them.
Y también mejoraron la capacitación, el entrenamiento de los adultos para mejorar la capacidad de ellos para entregar el control a los jóvenes.
And then we also learned that the adults who we connected to work with them needed more help, and so we changed the program to provide them with more assistance and focusing our staff more on providing them help.
Y también lo que aprendieron en la evaluación es que los adultos con los que estaban trabajando necesitaban más ayuda y por ende entonces cambiaron el programa para otorgarles también más ayuda a ellos.
So I'll go through this pretty quickly.
Esta evaluación de resultados,
When we compared kids in the program to not in the program, and I won't go into all the details, there were very few kids, and the yes participants were only 40. But when we compared them to other kids in their school or other kids in a different school that had no yes involvement at all, they reported a little bit more conflict resolution.
a ver, compararon los participantes con un grupo control no participante. And she found what? Sorry, more
Conflict resolution.
y encontraron un poquito mejor, una mejor capacidad de resolución de conflictos.
And then they they reported more conflict avoidance.
Y también reportaban mejor evitación del conflicto.
We also had some police incident data, and what we did is we went around to the places where they did a community change project, like a mural or a community garden, and we looked to see if there was less youth violence based on the police data in places where they had done their work.
Ya. También consultaron los datos de la policía para ver si había menos incidentes violentos en el vecindario.
And this graph basically shows you that the answer is yes.
Y la respuesta es sí, que había menos.
Before the project, you could see there was some violence around those sites. And this is 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, and 400 meters. And after a while, you wouldn't expect it to have much radiating effect. You would expect the effect to be closest. And that's exactly what these results are showing.
Bueno, estos resultados muestran exactamente lo que se espera, que en lugares que están cerca de donde se hizo la intervención, efectivamente se ve un efecto de reducción, digamos, de los incidentes violentos, o sea, a los 100 metros, 200, 300, pero ese efecto desaparece a los 400 metros en los lugares que están más distantes, lo cual de alguna manera confirma también la efectividad de la intervención.
So right around it, this is before and after, these are statistically
Ese
significant.
antes y después, el amarillo y el rojo.
And even at about 300 meters it had an effect, but at 400 meters it starts dissipating altogether.
I said it.
Oh, you did? Oh. Okay. We also did a study where we looked at the effects of being exposed to yes activities on psychological empowerment, and then psychological empowerment on those efforts.
También hicieron un estudio para comparar, para ver el efecto de Yes Activities en empowerment psicológico y en estos otros resultados que ven al lado derecho.
So if you remember the very first, this is the brand new data. We literally finished these analyses last week before I came. I asked my colleagues if they would do this analysis so I could present it. So you're hearing this for the first time. But this is the first evidence that the empowerment activities that they engaged in the curriculum led to their sense of more empowerment, as I mentioned before, measured in exactly the ways we talked about, leading to more positive youth outcomes. So it's exactly what we had hypothesized.
Bueno, estos son los primeros resultados que alguien ve, o sea que ustedes pueden ver de que exactamente como habían hipotetizado, la intervención tenía los resultados esperados en términos de empoderamiento, de empowerment, y a su vez tenía entonces el impacto en las tres variables que ustedes pueden ver ahí al final: comportamiento prosocial, en el ámbito académico, esfuerzo académico y toma de decisiones.
And so for those of you who are interested in statistics, we did this in structural equation modeling.
Bueno, para los que estén interesados en estadística, se usó el modelo de ecuaciones estructurales para realizar esto.
And you can see on the model fit indices.
Y acá,
those stats nerds.
ok, entonces para los fanáticos de los nerds de la estadística pueden ver ahí los datos abajo a la izquierda.
Y otro más. This is showing the same effect for problem behaviors, in particular delinquency and aggressive behavior.
Y esto muestra el mismo efecto sobre otras dos variables de outcome: comportamiento agresivo y comportamientos delictuales.
And again, all the statistics are there. The effects are not quite as strong, but the effects are there.
Estos efectos no fueron tan fuertes, tan poderosos como los anteriores, pero están allí.
Okay. That's the end of the boring part, I hope. It wasn't too boring for you. I only lost a few people, that's a good thing.
Él espera que no haya sido demasiado aburrido, dice.
Or the rest of you are just really polite. You didn't say that. Okay, so this is a mural that the kids did. Okay, they designed this mural. I'm going to tell you a story about it. It's there.
Este es un mural que hicieron los jóvenes y va a contar una historia sobre este mural.
This is the story I'm going to tell is their story. It's basically we asked them what this is all about. They told us, and I'm going to now tell you what this is all about.
Ellos contaron la historia de qué se trataba este mural y él ahora va a contarle a usted esta historia.
I want to be really clear that this is not my story, this is theirs.
Y quiere dejar muy claro que no es la historia de él, sino que es la historia de ellos.
And I want to give you a sense of how big this is.
Ah, y que da la idea de qué tamaño es esto.
70 meters?
70?
Metros.
70.
No, 25, I'm sorry,
Okay.
25 meters.
Okay. Entre 20 y 25 metros.
And it's about 4 meters, 4 or 5 meters tall.
Okay. Entre 20 y 25 metros de ancho y 4 o 5 metros de alto.
If they were going to stand in front of this, and I think I may have a slide of this later, their heads, they're 13-year-olds, their heads would be just below the boat.
Si estuviesen the heads of whom?
Their heads. Their heads. If they stood up,
Yes.
their heads would come below the boat.
Okay. Si estuvieran parados acá, las cabezas estarían justo debajo del bote, más o menos.
I think I have a slide of that later. So let me tell you about this. You can hit it. Hit it. Okay.
Ah.
Now hit another one. So you'll see on the bottom of the picture there's liquor.
Abajo en el cuadro se ve, sí.
Una
Ok, una botella que dice licor. Ahí hay un revólver.
Shackles from slaves.
Cadenas de esclavos.
Slave ship.
Un barco, una embarcación de esclavos.
All of those are sinking to the bottom. The slave ships,
Todo eso se están hundiendo al fondo del mar.
the slave ships and the shackles are a historical analysis of how black people came to the what is now the United States through the slave trade in Europe.
Las cadenas y esos barcos son parte del análisis histórico de cómo llegaron, digamos, los afroamericanos a Estados Unidos.
The ethnic identity portion of the curriculum, they're putting it right here on the picture.
Entonces todo ese componente de identidad étnica del currículum está ahí presente en este mural.
And then the alcohol and the drugs all sinking to the bottom. They're bad things that need to
Y
go away.
también el alcohol y las drogas y todas las cosas malas que deben desaparecer están ahí hundiéndose en el fondo.
On the one side of the picture is tall buildings, alto edificios.
A un lado del mural hay edificios altos.
That represents old people, adultos.
Eso representa a gente mayor, adultos.
The next one on the right-hand side are flowers. What do you think that represents?
Al lado derecho hay flores. ¿Qué creen ustedes que representa eso? Women.
The kids, young people.
Gente joven.
They're new, they're growing up. Again, this is their
Nuevos,
story.
están desarrollando. Es la historia de ellos.
And you'll see that there's a bridge between the young people and the old people.
Y pueden ver que hay un puente entre la gente mayor y la gente joven.
But it doesn't quite come together. What connects?
Pero que no se junta. Entonces, ¿qué conecta?
The love boat.
El bote del amor. Ah, ¿verdad? Tiene un corazón. El bote del amor es lo que conecta.
So love between adults and kids brings them together.
El amor entre los adultos y los jóvenes es lo que une.
Okay. I'm going to end with one last thing, and now maybe this will help get everybody up. I'm expecting everybody to join me in this. But one of the things that they did was they made a song.
Otra cosa que hicieron, crearon una canción y él espera entusiasmarlos a todos con esta canción. Que se levanten, no sé, que canten.
It's really a terrific song, and what's interesting about the song is there's a couple things. Similar to the mural, this is one of the reasons, I mean, that mural is one of my favorite murals of all time. I love it. And we drove by some very nice murals on the way here. I forget the name of the street, but it's this.
Dice que también vio muchos murales muy interesantes acá en el camino y él, bueno, ama el mural que nos mostró y la canción también tiene algunos aspectos muy interesantes que va a señalar ahora.
I'm just translating.
You know, do you know what the murals I mean? They're next to the buildings. They're next to buildings where people live, down the street, down over somewhere. But the mural depicts really what we were trying to communicate in the curriculum, and it's almost like a validity check on the independent variable for those research nerds. And you want to say that? No.
Give me the
Explain. You don't know. The idea is that they depicted on that mural the contents of the intervention. So it reflects that they were getting what we were trying to teach them about the sinking of the bad things, the bringing together of the adults and the kids, the love boat, that sort of thing.
Ok. En el fondo, los contenidos que están en el mural para ellos también es un chequeo en el fondo, que valida la intervención, porque en ese mural aparecen exactamente los contenidos que ellos depositaron en la intervención. Por lo tanto, el hecho de que ellos lo reflejaran en el mural significa que lo incorporaron.
Similarly, the song, and if you could hear the whole thing and listen to the whole thing, and all of these are available on the website that is on this slide. And I encourage you to go there. Actually, we also have it translated into Spanish. It was translated by a Chilean into Spanish. It was Jorge Varela's wife translated this for us. We hired her to do the translation. And it's free. You can download measures, you can download the curriculum, you can download anything you want, pick anything you want. The U.S. federal government paid for it, and I feel it's our obligation to make it available to everybody.
Lo mismo vale para la canción. O sea, la canción incluso fue traducida al castellano. No entendí bien por quién. Ya, perfecto. ¿Por ti? Ok. Y está está en el sitio web y ustedes pueden, o sea, bajar la canción, bajar el programa, o sea, está a libre disposición porque esa es la idea, que se pueda usar.
So thank you for your patience. That's all I have.
Muchas gracias por la paciencia.
Muchas gracias. Preguntas.
Les puedo leer teníamos preparado un café pensando que estamos como a la mitad de la jornada. Entonces, ¿les parece que hagamos una pausa, nos demos 20 minutitos para el café acá afuera para nosotros que lo disfruten? Así Marc también descansa. Guarden las preguntas porque después vamos a volver con las preguntas. Y lo que quería preguntar es el baño más cercano está vacío hacia el fondo, así que el café está aquí. No importa, pero gracias, Vicky.
Voy a difundir el primer congreso
todos ustedes, los estudiantes, están especialmente convocados a presentar trabajos. Habrán espacios especiales para mesas de estudiantes, mesas redondas, etcétera, con los temas emergentes, los temas sencillos para ustedes. Y nosotros, como mención, nos comprometemos a apoyarlos en esa presentación. Así es que, por favor, apoyen la convocatoria, recíbanla, la vamos a mandar sus mail y también difundan, ¿ya? Probablemente un público preferente sean los estudiantes. Así es que están especialmente invitados ustedes los de la comité.
Pero la fecha que
9, 10 y 11 de noviembre del 2016, en Universidad de las Avances. ¿Cuál es el dato de número de clase? Fotos académicas, no vamos a ver. Ya. Segundo, Marc va a poder exhibir los videos.
Sí.
Y tercero, luego de los videos vamos a tener un espacio para preguntas. ¿Ya? Perfecto. Los videos. ¿Estamos?
Estamos.
I'm going to play the video that I was going to start with, and it'll talk, the kids talking about the program and what they did in the program, okay?
Vamos a mostrar ahora el video donde están los jóvenes hablando acerca del programa y de lo que hicieron en el programa.
This Saturday, we're gonna, in the parking lot, we're gonna put 2 basketballs, so there's 2 courts.
The ES program is helping us clean out our park area.
18 from 9 to 1 to noon, we'll be out sweeping the track because if someone was to fall on it, it will cause very severe injuries.
Our project is that we're putting flowers in front of that school. We're installing bleachers, all the ones that are right there for big cornfields. They're all run down. And then we're going to fix up the platform. We're going to paint over the rust. What we really definitely keep cleaning.
We got some trash for the neighborhood, so the neighborhood can be much better and beautiful. We're doing how violence needs to be stopped, and right now we're trying to see what we can put our poster.
It helps our school and it makes our school pretty.
Once we've cleaned it and tried to make it look nice, I think more people will come out and try to exercise and play on the track.
Make it look nice. We want it to be able where people drive by and oh look, look at that nice field. Like when they slow down and they see good things, so go down and look at them.
Well, because then it helps Flint become a better city.
Everything that's brighter and nice and newer, it helps people's attitudes. So we have to clean environment.
I want it to be better.
Like they say, home is where the heart is.
Home is where the heart is. So this is the website, and you can navigate to it, obviously. Oops. The resources is where the videos are. There are many other videos to look at. Maybe we should...
En el sitio, este es el sitio, en el sitio también hay otro video. Voy a aprovechar de hacer una pequeña corrección porque traduje algo mal, porque en realidad lo entendí mal cuando lo dijo. No era la canción la que se había traducido al español, sino que es el currículum el que está traducido al español, ¿ok? Y lo pueden encontrar en el sitio también.
Did you just say that about the curriculum?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you go to the curriculum, you could, oh, what am I doing? I thought it was in front of you. Good. You can see to the curriculum, there's a few things.
Si uno va al currículum puede ver ahí que se abren una serie de pestañas.
So there's ways to download different kinds. You can download, and we did a project on adaptation and on what kinds of changes you could make and keeping it still connected to the theory that guided it. That's the adaptation guide.
Por ejemplo, se pueden descargar. I didn't get the adaptation guide.
It's how do you adapt it or change it to fit your context. Some guidance on how to change the curriculum.
Ok. En esto donde dice Adaptation Guide es una guía para ver cómo uno puede cambiar o adaptar ese currículum.
And I think if you go down to this page, you go down here, how do you do that? There should be some information on downloading the curriculum.
Y ahí hay información sobre cómo descargar el currículum.
Anyway, that's the website. I invite you to go there and, like I said, download whatever you'd like.
Y los invita a usarla y descargar lo que deseen.
So we had questions, right?
Preguntas.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm gonna go. Wow. Okay.
Would like to know more about the mural, like you were talking about the picture of the bridge. How did this mural make a change in the community, and how was it possible to quantify that change?
¿Quieres saber cómo el mural impactó y puede haber significado un cambio en la comunidad y cómo este cambio podría haber sido o puede eventualmente haber sido cuantificado?
It'd be easier for you if I was down there with it. Well, we showed some results. We did some analysis around the mural, around some gardens, and we looked at police incidents before and after. Police incidents mostly on fights and assaults, those kinds of things. And what we found is that around some of these places, there was, in most of the places we looked, there was less assaults and less crime around those places. Now, why would that happen? Why would we expect that to happen? The hypothesis is very similar to the idea of the greening hypothesis, which is basically, if you clean up one place, it'll have an effect on the places around it. You want to insert that first?
Sí, o sea, lo que pudieron observar es que si intervenían un lugar determinado, había menos asaltos en ese lugar y en los alrededores. Entonces hay una especie de efecto de, como de comillas, limpiar, bueno, no suena tan bien en castellano, pero en el fondo, si uno interviene favorablemente, también en términos estéticos, paisajísticos, etc. En este caso con el mural, esto va a tener un efecto que irradia en el entorno y que es visible en los índices también de criminalidad, por ejemplo.
So that's the main way we have kind of looked at it, explored that idea. We have a paper that was recently published on how a community garden is related to people taking care of their properties compared to lots or an empty parcel, property parcel that was not taken care of, did not have a community garden. And people were more likely to take care of the properties near them. So that's a second sort of empirical evidence of the fact of the radiating facts. I'll let you go on and tell you the next thing.
Por ejemplo, tienen un paper recientemente publicado en que muestran cómo una intervención en espacios públicos, jardines comunitarios, tiene un efecto en que los vecinos cuidan de otra manera sus propias casas y hicieron comparaciones, digamos, entre lugares en que se habían intervenido estos espacios para convertirlos en jardines versus otros en que estaban los sitios heriazos y cómo esto impactaba en los vecindarios, con efectos obviamente positivos donde se había intervenido.
How many people have heard about broken windows theory.
Nos pregunta si alguien ha escuchado de la teoría de vidrios rotos.
One broken window leads to another broken window.
Que un vidrio roto lleva a otro vidrio roto.
More broken windows and community decline.
Más vidrios rotos y declina o decae la comunidad.
Because it's sending a message to people who live there and who live around there to say, well, nobody cares about this place, so neither do we.
Porque es un mensaje que se le da entonces al vecindario o a, digamos, a la población de que a nadie le importa este lugar, por lo tanto a mí tampoco me importa.
From that idea, we have written a paper about something called a theory called busy streets theory as a counterpart, as an empowerment example of thinking about what happens when you improve community. Can you build it, improve community, and slowly it gets better and better instead of worse and worse.
Bueno, tomando, o sea, revirtiendo justamente esta idea, ellos escribieron un paper justamente tomando la idea de que si uno mejora una comunidad como esto, también tiene un efecto de irradiación, entonces mejorar el entorno.
We published that paper, I think it came out in 2015 in a journal called Health Education and Behavior. And if you're interested, one of the tabs I can go to the citation, you can look at the citation later.
Lo publicaron en el 2015, ¿cuál was the journal?
Health Education and Behavior.
En el journal Health Education and Behavior.
Okay, is that okay? Good answer?
I would like to see the citation.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Quería saber cómo funciona, o sea, cuándo termina el programa, qué seguimiento tiene y cómo se ven los efectos fuera del programa de este empoderamiento individual, dado de que se ve como que hay una estructura bien marcada en un espacio súper asegurado, pero qué pasa después cuando las comunidades, o sea, cuando los individuos salen como al resto de la vida al final. I was wondering about how do you follow the participants of the program, and because the structure is very safe for them, and what happens after they go out, like in the real life? how the empowerment works outside the program?
I think I understand the question, is what happens when the program's over? We follow them, right now we follow them for 1 year, 2 years post. I think it's 2 years post. And we haven't looked at those data yet. That's the same data I just showed you for the first time that you saw. We only have anecdotal evidence that it was a sticky message. It stuck and continued into the future. And there's a video, another video of me, but one of the kids who went to the first program, and he talks about how it affected his life and how he started thinking more critically about his community. Because that he didn't really realize the bigger world out there, and that this helped him do all that, and now he's in college. So anecdotal evidence, some kids slip back, some kids stay there, but it's a question we're going to look into. We don't really follow them much past that. We don't know where they end up 5 or 8 years later. But there's one kid who's very articulate in describing how YES helped him get where he is today, which is now college, and he has a job, and he's going to college, and he's doing things. And if you can change one person's life, you probably paid for the program, honestly. You think about it, given the costs and all that sort of stuff. Should I have stopped so you could sit down?
Yes, just to be sure where you sit, before I translate. So you're saying that there are different, if the evidence shows that there are different results, or that you have a follow-up, and then for such children you can say that there was an impact in their lives. that you are not sure about what happened with the rest, or do I understand that?
No, decía que están, como estos resultados salieron ahora recién, van a hacer un seguimiento 2 años después, pero no van a hacer un seguimiento más allá. Los resultados que hay positivos son anecdóticos, más que nada. Hay uno de los que participó en el primer programa que ya está en la universidad y que escribe como de lo importante que fue el programa para él. Pero más allá de alguna experiencia anecdótica, son los únicos resultados que hay hasta ahora del programa.
By the way, the very first paper listed on the screen is the paper about busy streets. And if you're interested in the other paper that was published about the community gardens having an effect on people taking care of their own property, I can pull that up too. But that's the one that I was just talking about busy streets. Zimmerman, and yes.
Sí, perdón. Ese es el Pepe que estaba indicando antes respecto del trabajo en los jardines. Sí. What she's saying that she did a thesis, in a program based. She did her fieldwork in a program working with the children, and it's based on an approach of risk and protector factors, and that there are different issues there. That there are a lot of over-intervention. That they are normally really focused on time, and really short in time intervention, and that produces a lot of frustration among the professionals, and they believe that they are not really responding or meeting the needs of the children. Is in the line of what was asked before, how the community is involved in this intervention, how is conceived the community in the program, in the sense of how it's involved and what happened after the program intervention.
One thing I didn't really say in detail was how long the program lasts. There are several researchers in the United States have reported that you need about at least 30 contact hours to have some kind of effect. Now I work with some folks who do some much shorter term, in fact brief interventions of 30 minutes. But those are very specific, they're very individual focused, it's a very different kind of term. But for these kinds of programs, 30 hours of contact.
Ok, lo que está diciendo es que, bueno, la pregunta de fondo acá es cuánto tiempo se necesita para tener en verdad un efecto duradero. Entonces, que en general hay una máxima que se dice se requieren por lo menos unas 30 horas de intervención presencial para tener un efecto. Ahora, hay algunos que sostienen que ciertas intervenciones en verdad hasta podrían hacerse con 30 minutos. pero que en verdad, o sea, él piensa que al menos se requerirían de 30 horas, se queda más bien con esa visión.
So the program is about 12 weeks, and about 2 1.5 hour sessions is how we designed it, but people implement it in different ways.
Son 12 semanas y son 2 horas y media a la semana de trabajo, así como está diseñado el programa.
So that's one part of your question. The other part is sustainability.
Esa es una parte de la respuesta a tu pregunta. La otra parte tiene que ver con la sustentabilidad.
Right?
¿Cierto?
Como el reflejo de la comunidad, finalmente, cómo se visualiza la comunidad en este proceso de intervención posterior a este proceso.
The other part is also how you see the community or the involvement or the engagement of the community in this process.
Very much. And the way it's very interesting what happens is the community gets very engaged in it. And I'll give you a couple of anecdotes. We don't systematically keep track of this, but when we went to buy plants, for example, when one of the groups went to buy plants to do the garden, they learned, the business learned about what it was about, and they just gave them plants. They didn't even charge them. And we had money to pay for it. And they said, no, just take them. We love what you're trying to do. Another one, they went to a hardware store to buy tools, and the business said, here, take the tools. We love what you're trying to do. The community is very engaged in this in a small city, the local community. Another story, there was a guy who was riding his bike towards the kids working out there. Why don't you tell that and I'll tell us that story.
Okay. Dice que la comunidad, el barrio, digamos, está muy involucrado con la intervención. Entonces estaba dando algunos ejemplos. O sea, ejemplos, por ejemplo, que negocios que son parte, digamos, de ese vecindario, cuando ellos querían comprar ciertos insumos, o los participantes de la intervención querían comprar ciertos insumos, y ellos decían, no, tómenlos, llévenselos, porque, por ejemplo, para jardinería, porque esos son parte, o sea, tómenlos sin costo, digamos, porque son para la intervención.
One instance, there was somebody riding up on a bicycle. The supervisor was worried that this person was coming up to, and he was keeping an eye on him, was worried about what he was going to do. And what he had with him was water to hand out to the kids, saying, it's a pretty hot day, you probably need this. So there's a lot of community engagement in sort of informal ways because they love it. And then, of course, we are working with local community organizations to implement this.
O por ejemplo, estaba, no sé si entendí 100% el ejemplo, voy a repetir lo que me parece que entendí, que había alguien que,
lo siento,
que andaba en bicicleta con algo, digamos, que iba a repartirle a los jóvenes, y inmediatamente alguien de la comunidad lo vigiló y finalmente era que llevaba agua, digamos, para repartirle a los jóvenes, pero que había como una especie de, no sé, monitoreo de lo que estaba pasando.
We're very community. I promise I'll call on you next, okay?
I'm well aware of when people sit in the front, they get most of the attention. But if my last name starts with Z, so if it's alphabetical, I'm always in the back. And I'm going like this.
Dice que como su apellido empieza con una Z, él tiene una especie de discriminación positiva y le da más atención a los que se sientan atrás.
I want to ask you about the children participation in creating or in designing the project activities or workshops or the work. If there's any participation in the children in the creation of the intervention and how that participation is carried out.
Yeah, somebody else just asked me that question too. In general, they were not actually directly involved in developing the curriculum. It was not a joint effort.
Sí, la pregunta es acerca de la participación, ¿cierto?, de los jóvenes en el diseño mismo de la intervención, ¿cierto? Okay. Entonces, un momento. I was translating his question first. And the answer is that there was no direct participation. That was your answer, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. La respuesta es que no hubo una participación directa en el diseño mismo de la intervención. Pero
we did, in our process evaluation, we were getting feedback from the kids or very specifically, systematically, regularly, so that we could adjust it to get it more interesting to them. And it was their feedback that really helped make the program, we think, is more effective.
Okay. Pero durante la evaluación del proceso, ellos fueron permanentemente recolectando feedback de parte de los jóvenes y adaptando entonces la intervención en función de ese feedback. Por lo tanto, ahí sí influyó así, o sí, digamos, participaron por esa vía los jóvenes en el diseño de la intervención.
Okay. She wasn't going to let me go.
Ya, le voy a preguntar en español porque no sé cómo formularlo en inglés. Mi pregunta es como específicamente cuando trabaja con jóvenes afroamericanos, ¿cómo se posiciona como interventor dado que es un hombre blanco? Eso, como la parte ética de eso y la familiarización, si es complicada y si lo tomo en cuenta al tener toda esta intervención.
The fact of working with African American children, how you positionate yourself as a white man, as a white interventor, or maybe the other professionals of the program as well, when you're working from ethical point of view. That's it. No?
Ask her how she knows I'm white.
I'm seeing.
But I might have parents, right?
Yeah, I think because of the mural that has like a historical chart.
Sure. No, I'm teasing. But before I answer that question, I have to ask you this question. What is it that you're sharing? Is that your bed?
It's a drug.
Do you want
It's a
to
drug. It's a drug. That's the tea, right? Come on, it's yerba.
Yerba mate.
Yerba mate. You want some? Maybe. Maybe I should finish talking. What you raise is a huge and important point and issue that we struggle with and that we deal with all the time. And we're very conscious of it. And I'm very conscious of it. And so one way I deal with it in this case is I try to be in the back as much as possible. I'm not the face of the program. Some of our teachers are white, especially the ones who work in more white communities. We pay attention to those issues. There's a lot of deeper issues that we can discuss. I'm happy to do that. I mean, but they kind of go a little bit away from the YES program itself. But the way I deal with it is I stay in the back. Very rarely will I be out front. One year the kids wanted me out front. They asked me to come and talk to them and stuff like that. But we're sensitive to those issues. There are multiple issues. One is the race issue, and that's of course an important one. But there's also the academic community issue. There's also the adult-kid issue. When we had just a quick little story, maybe I should wait.
Yes, thank you. Dice que básicamente la forma que lo ha resuelto es que él no es la cara del programa, él está atrás. Y las personas que trabajan directamente con los chicos, algunos son ¿cómo se dice? Afroamericanos, aunque también hay algunos profesores que son blancos. Y esta es la manera que lo ha resuelto. Dice que hay otras más reflexiones más complejas que van un poco más allá del programa, pero que eso es como él puede explicar el fondo de este programa. Hay otros temas también involucrados, como por ejemplo la relación adulto-niño, ¿no? La relación ser académico, por ejemplo, etc.
You might be surprised to learn that I get that question a lot. I lot. We work with a lot of African Americans, and I get it. So I try to be in the back, and I try to help other people. And I tend to do that in general anyway. I like to lead from the back, because then other people can shine, and it can be about them, and that's about empowerment, right? So you see me here talking to you about this now, but there's a whole host of people behind me that really in front of me.
Perdón, sorry, no, dice que esto es básicamente hablar acerca del empoderamiento, entonces él quiere trabajar y liderar el programa más desde atrás y que otras personas sean las que tomen, ¿no?, la iniciativa, o sea, que estén más como brillando, digamos, a la vista.
Thank you guys so much for doing this. I really appreciate it a lot. I skipped you before, didn't I? So, yeah, I did. Oh, yeah, it was reminding me. Oh, yeah, I missed it.
No, estaba pensando en la realidad chilena y cómo han llegado hartos inmigrantes, no solamente nuestros vecinos de Bolivia y de Perú, sino que ahora llegan de Colombia también. Y sobre todo quería preguntar respecto a cómo lo habían hecho ustedes en el caso de los afroamericanos que no sabían hablar el inglés. Porque acá ahora están llegando haitianos, por ejemplo, que llegan mucho y no saben hablar español. Entonces tienen una tremenda barrera para poder adaptarse a la sociedad sin conocer el idioma.
Yeah, he was asking because now in Chile we are receiving a lot of immigrants, not only from Peru and Bolivia, but also from Colombia and recently from Haiti. So the language issue, how do you deal with the situation in which the children didn't speak the language? And because here in the case of people from Haiti, for example, they don't speak Spanish and it's a big barrier.
Oddly enough, in the United States we don't have that problem very much, interestingly enough. I mean, we do have immigrants, they do have language issues. We're not really dealing with those in this case. We also helped the group in Salinas, California implement Yes, and they were all Mexican Americans. And but they explicitly asked us to that they didn't want it in English, that the kids would want it. I mean, that they didn't want it in Spanish, but they wanted it in English because they were. Speak English. So that issue isn't as big an issue for us in this program. And I'm not big on immigration research, but immigration research is all about how do you communicate with populations that are just now learning the language. And I can't really speak to that. I don't know much about that. So I'm just going to pass, okay?
Voy a pasar un poco con esta pregunta porque la verdad que no ha sido un gran tema en el programa y de hecho hubo una experiencia con inmigrantes mexicanos que pidieron que fuera el programa en inglés en vez de en español.
Me pareció entender que el programa se implementa en comunidades escolares. ¿Is the program implemented in school communities?
The program.
Maybe I can finish because it's free. School communities, los niños participan voluntariamente, our kids they self-select themselves to participate, y jóvenes traen a otros jóvenes al programa. Do kids bring other kids to the program while it's going on?
You want to say the question in English? I mean Spanish?
No, I think she translated.
Oh, she did it yourself. Okay. Number one is developed to be after school, so in a school context, but after school. It's all active learning though, so we didn't want to give them more schooling. So to answer your first question, it's in after school, but we have also implemented it with the local church that did it in a community. And we are now, in fact, this morning I read a proposal that we're submitting to incorporate this into the classroom, into the school day. So it'll be an optional class. So let's answer the first question.
Bien, lo que estaba diciendo que, o sea, si bien estaban trabajando con población escolar, la idea no era, digamos, en este proyecto alargar tiempo escolar, sino que estaban trabajando en tiempo extraescolar y no solamente involucrando el colegio, pero también involucrando, por ejemplo, una iglesia, y que ahora sí está viendo un nuevo proyecto en que estaban intentando introducir algunos de estos componentes dentro de los horarios de clase habituales.
Second question. No, there's 3 questions in there. Hold on. 3 questions. The second question was self-selection, right? When we first developed this, it was self-selected. We went to the after-school program and asked if they wanted to be in it. And the results of the study that I showed you, where I talked about the nerds, the stats nerds in the room, the methods nerds, in that study, it was kids who self-selected in after-school programs, and then we randomly assigned them. Then we randomly assigned them because we want to address just that fact that maybe it's something about self-selection. So we paired kids who also self-selected but didn't get into the program. And when we incorporate it into the classroom, one of the ideas is it won't be self-selection, except that it'll be an elective course that they take. So there is a self-selection issue, but those are some of the ways we've tried to deal with it.
Bueno, el tema de la autoselección es un tema, de hecho, y es un tema para la investigación, sobre todo si se intenta hacer una comparación con un grupo control, o sea, sobre todo en la primera intervención hubo una autoselección y después ellos sí asignaron aleatoriamente a un grupo, o sea, a partir de este grupo autoseleccionado a un grupo de intervención versus el otro grupo sin la intervención, pero que ahora están intentando de alguna manera tomar este problema de la autoselección de otra forma, tratando de introducir dentro del currículum de sala de clase algunos componentes.
And it's been so long, I forgot the third question.
The kids come bring their friends.
Oh, they'll bring, they might bring their friends, but our current study, we actually tried to randomly assign, and the teachers, I think, and maybe because the kids were bringing their friends, kind of messed up our random design. So we had to kind of come up with some other creative ways to deal with that. So they do sort of bring their friends. We don't encourage that, but on the other hand, it happens, and we don't get in the way of the natural world. So we try to avoid that if we can. We're very committed to working in an applied community context, and so we have to adjust our methods and we have to adjust our science because we're doing community science and real lives happen.
Bueno, el problema acá, lo que está en juego y entra en conflicto en realidad es el diseño, comillas, experimental, hasta cierto punto con la asignación aleatoria del grupo y la vida real. Entonces, ellos, claro, no evitan activamente que algunos lleven a sus amigos, pero tratan de evitarlo dentro de lo posible porque les echa a perder el diseño. O sea, si es que empieza a esparcirse porque rompe en el fondo la aleatorización, digamos, de los dos grupos.
I promised her I'd apologize. I shouldn't say I promised her. She, I think, would have attacked me. I said, okay, so you promised. And she wants the microphone. I think you wouldn't want to hire this woman right here.
Bueno, hola, voy a decir primero en español. Tengo 3 preguntas, no, pero una son cortitas. Primero, ¿cuáles son los actores de esta comunidad que están considerando? También con esto quiero preguntar por qué o de qué manera están trabajando con los niños y con la comunidad o con los actores de esta comunidad de tal manera que el trabajo continúe, porque siento que a eso apuntaba en las preguntas anteriores, cuando ustedes se vayan de ahí como programa, para no tener un modelo asistencialista que permita que ellos sigan trabajando de una manera empoderada. Y lo otro que, bueno, si es que lo responden es ¿por qué se enfocan en empoderamiento psicológico a nivel individual y no está trabajando en empoderamiento a nivel comunitario? ¿Ya? Lo voy a traducir. First, who are the actors of this community?
Or the actors?
Yeah. Well, you can answer. Oh, do I say all and then you answer? Okay. And what are you doing in your empowerment intervention so they get empowered in such a way that they continue to be empowered after, and they continue by themselves after you leave? So because now it seems like an assistance-based model, like kind of paternalistic. And the third question is, why are you focused on psychological empowerment and not empowerment on the level of the community?
Next question.
One by one. One by one.
Yeah, one by one. Yeah, no, the first one is, who are the actors in the community? I didn't really describe the city of Flint very much. The city of Flint used to be a very affluent community in the early 60s, early 1960s was very affluent, among the highest in the United States. Today, it's among the lowest. There's about a 41% poverty rate.
Ok, respecto de quiénes son los actores, no sé si la pregunta tuya iba en esa dirección, pero la respuesta que él está dando, o sea, ¿cuál es la población destinataria? Esa es la respuesta que él está dando. Él está diciendo que si en algún momento era una población con un nivel de ingreso más o menos alto, en este momento es una población que tiene aproximadamente un 40% de pobreza.
Yeah, but
that was not her question.
Who are they in this community? Are more than, because it's more than just the kids, because you have these undergraduate students, it's you, and you say you went to buy these flowers and then they were so nice and whatever. Are they part of the community that you consider them or not?
Yeah. Well, it depends where you draw the lines. We consider people who we're working with or who we touch to be part of the community in some way or another. The city of Flint has a very strong sense of identity as Flintstones, as people who are members of the community. They identify strongly with Flint. Flint has a history of community organizing, and it's the home of the United Auto Workers. The city today, or I was going to say more about the city today is 55% African American, largely lower income, and who we consider the community is really where the kids do their work. We have networks through the whole city, and I say we, I mean all the people behind me. We have contacts in different places. We know what businesses we go to, for example. We have an idea, like for example, that oh, I should stop. Keep going? Okay. The mural, we knew the owner of the building who had a hair salon in the building. There were some other things in the building. We knew her. We asked her if the kids could do a mural because they were planning a mural. She said yes. Sometimes we work with the kids to help them identify people. For example, when we did the printing for the Photo Voice project where they raised funds by selling it, we went to 3 different printers in the city that we knew about, and the kids interviewed them and decided which one to use. So it's sort of a difficult answer to give because there's also community by neighborhood. And Flint also has different neighborhoods, and there's some identity by that. You live on the southeast, you live in the north quadrant, you live in different places. So community is a slippery question. I mean, it's hard to directly answer, but there's a strong sense of connectedness across, but there's also within specific areas.
Bueno, voy a intentar hacer una síntesis de la respuesta que acaba de dar Marc. O sea, La respuesta es la siguiente, o sea, ellos trabajan en una ciudad que tiene un fuerte componente identitario como tal, que está arraigado también en su historia, una ciudad que además tiene un alto componente de población afroamericana, hablando del 55%, digamos que también es parte, por supuesto, de su identidad. En términos de actores involucrados, nos están haciendo una diferenciación. Si bien este programa está orientado hacia los jóvenes, ellos han trabajado con cualquier otro actor potencial, desde la señora de la peluquería, pasando por el señor que vende plantas, pasando por cualquier otro, y de hecho, todos ellos son considerados por ellos actores potenciales de la comunidad, pero por supuesto ellos no estaban en contacto con todos aquellos. Entonces, para ellos, los actores son básicamente, o fueron en la intervención, aquellas personas con las que entraron en contacto en la práctica. Ahora, habiendo dicho eso, que la ciudad tiene un componente identitario fuerte como tal, también es verdad que hay barrios específicos que a su vez son subunidades, que también tienen una identidad particular fuerte que los distingue, y en ese sentido, claro, el concepto de comunidad es un poco resbaloso en ese sentido, o sea, dónde ponemos los límites. Pero a mí con su respuesta me queda totalmente claro que está viendo como comunidad, digamos, en todo, o sea, no está trabajando con un subgrupo de jóvenes, sino que con el conjunto de todos los que habitan, digamos, allá, como potenciales actores involucrados.
And we have, almost all of our projects have some kind of community advisory group that represents community-based organizations and health department and other groups. There is always a debate, do they really represent the community? But that's another way we link to the community.
Sí, y la otra forma, digamos, de la cual ellos están vinculados con la comunidad es a través de organizaciones o representantes propios de la comunidad, con los cuales ellos se juntan, o sea, se han juntado en esta intervención, y claro, siempre está la pregunta hasta qué punto estos representantes en verdad representan la comunidad, pero es un problema que conocemos todos, ¿cierto? That's a universal.
Right. And we hire people in the community. It's not only the university people coming in and doing this work. The people who are on the ground actually are almost always from the city of Flint.
Okay. También contratan personas de la comunidad o de la ciudad para la intervención. No son solamente personas que vienen de la universidad para hacer la intervención.
So I forgot the two other questions. One was the question that was asked earlier about following the kids up over time, and as I said, we're doing that. We don't know how long the program will last. There is a video that you can see about one kid.
The question was it's about sustainability.
Sustainability.
Yes. Yeah, it's about what are you doing? So after you leave, after the program ends, the community takes responsibility for this, and they are empowered, so they keep on doing
fair enough.
things.
Yeah, good. One of the organizations actually is continuing the program after our funding and after our project. We're researchers, so we come in and we do the research. But one of the things we do is we do training around the curriculum, and we've done that around the country. We come in, we do training because they ask us to come in and do training. And then we hopefully help build their infrastructure so that they can continue doing the program henceforth. And so one is through the training mechanism, and then we usually provide a little technical assistance after that. The whole idea of the website, which is now zapped off the screen, is to create this resource that people could access and get this information for free, and we're there to do that. We've actually also talked to a local foundation to come up with some money for the after school program. They told us to come back when we had the results, so when I get home, the plan is this summer, and I was going to actually talk to them about that. But that's locally to Flint. But whereas one of the organizations, a church, is actually continuing the program after we're done.
Bueno, la idea es dejar justamente las capacidades instaladas en la comunidad para que el programa o los programas perduren independientemente de la intervención de ellos. Eso significa capacitación, también es la intención que está detrás del sitio web, que está a disposición justamente de la comunidad para que se sigan realizando los programas. Algunos de hecho se hacen, también ellos están intentando que ciertas fundaciones puedan donar dinero para que los programas ya desde la comunidad sin ellos presentes se puedan seguir manteniendo en el tiempo.
And then we also, when we develop programs, we think ecologically. And one of the ecological principles is the idea of succession. And the idea of succession is thinking about what's been done before as you develop what you're going to do now, and then how does it continue on once you're no longer there. And so I'd encourage you to read some of Jim Kelly's work on the ecological model and applying that to developing programs in the community. And we're certainly guided by a lot of those ideas.
Bueno, y están trabajando con una mirada de un modelo ecológico que implica mirar la intervención también en un continuo que entienda lo que sucedió antes, cómo digamos, se inserta en esta trayectoria la intervención y qué es lo que también, o sea, cuál es la siguiente etapa del desarrollo que tenemos en cuenta. Sí.
It's almost over. I'm loving
He's
this.
telling us that we have to
Finish. I love this. I love these questions. It's muy bien. Can I just finish the third question? You had 3 parts. Did I just, wasn't
But
it?
maybe
Let somebody else?
okay.
I told them I would.
One more.
La pregunta es cómo él elabora los componentes o los contenidos de cada uno de los componentes del empoderamiento psicológico. Él mostró una diapositiva donde salían los 3 componentes que habían contenido específico, que eran aspectos, indicadores, no sé bien. Y cómo lo elabora, si son una adaptación, digamos, al proyecto específico y cuál es el procedimiento para hacer esa adaptación. Porque no es lo mismo jóvenes y violencia que, no sé, ecología y otro tema, o discapacidad, o mujeres. ¿Cómo hace ese proceso de adaptación para crear los contenidos de los componentes?
How did you, when you show the psychological empowerment and the components and the indicators, how did you translate, how the process of translating those indicators or elements into concrete aspects of the program? You know, the concrete themes that were worked in the curricula, no? And because it's not the same with working with children and violence, for example, than working in other topics like environmental issues and so on.
Well, I but obviously know very well to connect how we were thinking about it, and then we translated that into actual activities that would be related to helping kids feel stronger about themselves, be able to think critically about their community, and then opportunities to take action. And that's the curriculum. It's all about helping kids develop self-confidence, the interpersonal component. And maybe I'm missing a question. And then how do they think about their environment and think critically about that? That was the idea of the photo voice. And then creating opportunities for them to actually make the change. So perhaps I'm missing the question, and maybe we can talk about that afterwards. But if I got the question, it doesn't look like I got the question, but...
Ya, lo que está diciendo en el fondo que que tradujeron en actividades concretas, ¿no? El tema de, por ejemplo, de desarrollar confianza, de los distintos elementos que él comentó, de desarrollar competencia en actividades concretas. Que tal vez no está respondiendo exactamente a tu respuesta respecto a tu pregunta en relación al proceso.
De la intervención, pero no como el diseño más o menos de las categorías con las que hizo el análisis.
Ah, ya, eso te interesa más, ya.
Sí, más que la intervención, cuáles son las categorías de análisis, cómo llegó a ella.
Ah,
en el ámbito
modelo. Ya, no te había entendido. Yeah, no, the question, Mary, sorry, it was my mistake. I understood that this question was not only how you just was not about how you translated into activities, no, but how did you construct the model? The model of the components and the indicators you constructed them.
Oh, that's a statistical question. That's why we talk about that afterwards. That is a little bit of a statistical question that is, we basically did confirmatory factor analysis. You know what that is?
A través de un análisis factorial.
Análisis factorial, sí, básicamente, que es una respuesta un poco difícil de dar.
Pero lo que creo yo que está preguntando es cómo está este modelo de lo que es el empoderamiento y cómo este modelo se transforma para el tema específico de la violencia que se está trabajando acá. ¿Es eso?
Claro.
Nobody understand this question.
Entiendo que en el fondo el empoderamiento psicológico tiene los tres componentes, digamos, que siempre se mencionan en todos los papers relacionados, pero y que vienen, digamos, y todos los citan ahí. Pero la pregunta específica es, ¿los contenidos de esos componentes están adaptados a esta...
The specific content of what we did.
Yes, and how you do adapt it, those components into the topic particularly you are working on, like the violence and prevention of violence.
You'll have to take my research methods class for me to fully answer that question. What we did is we took our ideas, we looked for measures that would be connected to those ideas, and then we tested whether or not those ideas kind of hung together. Unless I'm still missing the question. And what we did was, we didn't necessarily connect it to violence when we looked at the empowerment. We connected it to empowerment theory, regardless of violence, regardless of anything. It was what they were related to empowerment theory. So if interpersonal component means that they should feel confident they can be a leader, then we have measures that would assess that.
I see.
Is that it?
Yeah, that goes in the direction.
Yo creo, o sea, en el fondo lo que dice que no es que lo hayan adaptado a violencia en particular, sino que estaban trabajando con el modelo de empoderamiento, ¿no?
No, pero en el fondo lo que está diciendo es que, o sea, con el modelo, entonces dijeron, ok, con este componente, entonces eso significa en la práctica que tendríamos que encontrar tal cosa y fueron a evaluarlo, digamos, con instrumentos específicos. Y de esa manera lo adaptaron empíricamente.
Come to the University of Michigan.
Okay.
And I'll teach you. We have one más pregunta, and one permission for one more, and I guess you'll run.
I want to do not one, but two. The first one.
Big answer.
The first one is if you know some theorizations made here in Latin America. Like answers to the empowerment theory, like the concept of strengthening of Marc That's one. Or if you know, si conoce alguna teorización o respuesta con respecto al concepto de empoderamiento que haya sido más propiamente tal de Latinoamérica, como puede ser el concepto de fortalecimiento comunitario de Marc La segunda. Ya, les voy a hacer la segunda en español. Después patrocina. ¿Y cuál es el rol? O sea, ¿con qué rol juega el empoderamiento en la transformación de las condiciones sociales estructurales que perpetúan los problemas psicosociales? En este caso puede ser la violencia hacia la población afroamericana, puede ser la violencia de género, abuso contra menores.
Pero eso hay que traducirlo.
What's the role of empowerment theory in the transformation of the structural social conditions that perpetuate the psychosocial problems, like violence?
Very little question.
So the last question has two little questions that are really quite large. And I think the first question, if I understood it correctly, I've been criticized about empowerment, and I've worked on stuff on resilience, and people criticize it. How do you know what it looks like? It's a fad, it's this, that, and the other thing. And some people have run away from it and call it different things, and that's great. My feeling is, if I help you think better, then I've done my job. My job isn't to help make you agree with me. My job is to make you better thinkers. And if you prefer the word strengths and you want to run away from empowerment because of whatever reason, sometimes people run away from it for stupid reasons and sometimes for good reasons. And it is what it is. I think empowerment incorporates the idea of strengths-focused efforts. If you don't want to use that term, or somebody doesn't want to use that term, or they use a different term. I looked at the area of positive youth development. It's a big, big area, or positive psychology. Those are big, really took off because real straight psychologists or whatever started developing those ideas. But positive psychology is what I'm talking about and what I've been talking about. Positive youth development is what I've been talking about and what I am talking about. and I don't care. I think it's great. And if they never even cite me, I don't care either. Because what I care about is that people are starting to rethink how they think about the world. Instead of seeing what's wrong with it and how we can fix it, I call it what you want. But if they're starting to look at what's right in the world and how do you build it up, we're winning the battle. We're winning the war. It's not about the terminology. This is the worldview according to Marc. Not according, you incorporate it into your own worldviews and your own work. I hope you do. You don't have to, agree or use these terms. But I would implore you to think about how do we build up positive aspects in people's lives and look at them as strengths and look at them as people that can offer something to humanity. And how do we bring that out of people? That's the goal. So that's number one.
Ok, voy a hacer una síntesis de traducción. O sea, la primera pregunta era respecto del término, concepto, fortalecimiento de Maritza Montero. Y él dice que en realidad a él no le preocupa que haya otros términos u otros conceptos, a todo lo contrario. O sea, que no siempre que tenga que ser, por eso en mis palabras, colonizar como el mundo con el concepto de empoderamiento. Lo que a él le importa es el enfoque, que es un enfoque que está centrado en los aspectos positivos, en las fortalezas. En ese sentido, el término fortalecimiento contiene la idea de fortaleza, y eso es lo que importa, digamos, trabajar con las fortalezas de la gente para convertir este mundo finalmente en un mundo mejor. Esa es mi síntesis pequeña.
I know one last question, and this is relating to your question, I think, too, now that I remember what your third question was, and that is the idea of being paternalistic, and how does this really address structural issues that create the context where people are violent, people are poor, racism that pushes people down. And I have to say that I don't think about the empowerment idea as a paternalistic approach. When we're working, it's okay, unless you can't hear, I'm fine. Don't do it because you think it's polite. If you all left, I could still talk to the empty room. But we definitely think about the structural factors. In fact, the very first proposal that we wrote was required to do community level change, not individual level change. And that's when we came up with the idea, let's get the kids involved in our efforts to make change. And then when we said, great idea, we realized, well, they're just kids. They're 12 years old. How many people here at 12 years old know how to do anything? I was still playing with trucks when I was 18. So we realized that we had to provide some structures for them to learn. But what we have them learning is learning through action. They do different activities. We don't talk to them like this. We engage them in a process where they do a project, a little mini project, a little mini contest together. And I can tell you about it if you want more details. And then we talk about the process of when they worked in a group to get this goal done. What was it like? Who took the lead? How did you make decisions? And so we try to get them to think critically so that they can start thinking about adjusting their lives and seeing that it's not all about them, that it is a larger context. One of the videos that talks about the kid who came back and they interviewed him, somebody else did who did the video, so the people who made the video did this, and they asked me if I would participate. And he specifically talks about how the YES program helped him think critically about his community. He even says at one point, I used to think I wanted to leave, but I feel like I want to stay now and do something to improve my community. And so we try to get them to think outside of themselves as 12-year-olds, and it seems like we're making it work and making it happen. It is somewhat a little bit more paternalistic when you work with kids, and we have a paper about this typology of, I probably should stop and so you can communicate some of this. I would love to talk to you more about this because you are asking really fundamentally important questions. You're clearly learning a lot, at least I know you guys are the students, and You're learning a lot about, these very issues and struggling with them. And we struggle with them every day. And we think about these issues all the time in everything we do. And we really try not to be very individual oriented. But we do work with individuals. So the challenge is, how do we work with individuals in a way to address the structural issues? I'm not a politician, so I don't change policy, but I take every opportunity when I can. I was invited to Washington, D.C. to talk to policymakers on Monday, this coming Monday. I arrive at home on Sunday, and on Monday, I'm going to Washington, D.C. to talk to policymakers, and I'm going to tell them about this program. I mean, it's transforming the way we think about things, starts to change the structural factors that create where we are, right? That we start thinking about, imagine if everybody started thinking about people as positive rather than negative, there would be a lot of different kinds of intervention that we would see, for example. So we are conscious about being paternalistic. We work very closely with community. I'm often challenged by my community partners. Often issues are raised about my white privilege, even if I may not always be right. I come from a minority group, a national and international minority group, but we're privileged, and so it's hard to really, I'm not trying to say there's an oppression Olympics, but my people have been oppressed for a long time, but I don't look it because I have this color skin. I also I was the first one to graduate from college in my family. So I'm a first generation college graduate in my family. But people see me as the old gray-haired guy with white skin up here talking to you, and you make assumptions, right? And it's that whole idea of breaking down those assumptions. On the way down here, I was talking, and I'm sorry, I'm going on and on. If you don't understand English, you're not going to get this, because we're not going to ask you to translate this. In Paola Repetto, Paola's right there. She has in her office, or I saw it at her home, I forget exactly where I saw it, and I want to get one of these. It's a map of the world. It's a map of the world. And those of us who live in the Northern Hemisphere have a map of the world where the United States is on the top, Russia's on the top, right? Europe is on the top, and China is mostly on the top, and Chile, and Argentina, Africa, Australia are on the bottom. But I've seen the map, it's flipped, where the top is the bottom. It's like in space there is no up, so why is the north up? Well, that's perspective, that's structural, that's all those things we're talking about. And I was talking to my colleagues, I'm going to buy one, and I might not buy one here, I might buy it on the internet because it'll be easier to get home. I'm going to put it on my wall, and people were going to look at that and they're like, whoa, that's a different perspective. And even people who are oppressed or who are on the structural side, negative side of things, they also have their biases. And what we need to do, I think, as human beings, is starting to appreciate the diversity that we have among us. That's what's going to start breaking down the cultural barriers. The age issues, the gender issues, the race issues, the socioeconomic issues, the academic and community issues, the applied versus researcher types. All of those things are barriers to us getting along and working to solve human problems. And we start to make a difference in the world when we start addressing all of those. And it's easy to point out the ones that are obvious. It's really hard to understand the ones that are not so obvious. And that example of the map, the flipping of the map, I don't think anybody in the United States who thinks about these structural issues and who are very, oriented towards changing culture and all that, I think they would see that map and say, oh wow, holy mackerel. So I'll get off my little soapbox there. Great questions. I really enjoyed the questions. I really appreciate that you actually stayed this long. Look how many people are still in the room. That's very flattering, and I appreciate it very much. And so, applause to all of you for
for sticking with it and participating, and I appreciate it, and thank you.